I'm going to start today, Daf Nun Gimel. It's 53A. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. This in English. Okay. Someone takes a vow he's not going to eat dates. Well, he's allowed to have date honey. What comes out of the date is not what he vowed. A little bit of an issue here has to do with, we had a machlekes before, where if someone takes a vow from milk, we said that he was allowed to eat the whey, right? Or basically says that he's not allowed to. So right now, this would seem to fit with the Chachamim, correct? Because what comes out of it is not a problem. Only thing is that the Gemara said that if you call it Kuma de Chalba, if it was actually called the way of milk, then that would be an issue. So over here, because we call it Dvash Tamarim, honey of dates, so then because we're mixing the dates into the name, so then that would be a problem. It won't fit even according to the Chachamim. So this is a little bit problematic. Two possibilities. One I understand and one I don't. One I think I understand and one I definitely don't. The Ran quotes the Rashba. He says that I don't understand. He says that the whey and the milk is not really two independent things. It's not processed. The whey is already there and it's not processed to remove it. But because this is processed to get the honey out of the date that's processed, so then it's, even though it has the name Dvash Tamarim, but it's not considered Tamarim. Now, what I don't understand is why is getting the honey out of the date processed? I mean, you probably squish it and there's honey. I mean, the same way, how do you get, I don't know, but I don't make it, so I trust the Rashba. The Ran's pshat is different. Ran has a very interesting pshat. He says that if I would say the way of milk, I'm not saying that it's as opposed to the way of something else. When I'm saying Dvash Tamarim, I'm doing a contrast that this is the honey from the date, but it's not the honey from something else. In other words, I have other types of honey, so which means that I'm not really calling it Dvash Tamarim. I'm just saying that it's not the honey from bees. So the name Tamarim on it is not as significant as when I say Kuma de Chalba, because over there, where I don't have to contrast it with anything else, and nevertheless it's still called by the name of way of milk, then it's more milk. Anyway, that's the run. Next case, Sitvanias. Sitvanias, Stav is the winter. Sitvanias are the late grapes. The reason why the late grapes is because they're still on the vine during the winter. The grape season is around Sukkot time. That's when the grapes are the best. By now already the grapes, they're importing something, Shvacha grapes. But a month ago they were amazing. So that's it. Once the winter starts, it's not really. Anyway, now it's, what are these grapes used for? They don't really fully develop. They like stops the development, so they make vinegar out of it. So it's permissible. If someone took a vow,
I wonder, is this what late harvest wine is made from?
yeah, maybe that's what that is. I didn't realize that it would be more sour. Over here, it sounds like it's more sour. Does late harvest mean that it's sour? You know that?
Late harvest wine that I drink, you get sour.
Because it's turning. What it's saying here is like this: if someone takes a vow that he's not going to eat late grapes, so he's allowed to have the vinegar from these. From this. No, this is a unique. This is a unique vinegar. What are you saying, Naran?
Leftover from Shabbos.
Very nice.
Haven't tasted yet.
You know why.
Some it's already.
But late harvest wine is.
You bring that.
Oh, so late harvest would mean that it's sweeter.
Usually, yeah.
Because
Theory. Unless you're real wine.
okay. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Aimer. So far, the Tanna Kama here has been lenient. They say that if you take a vow from dates, you're allowed to have date honey. Take a vow from late grapes, winter grapes, you're allowed to have winter grape vinegar.
That's if you say dates.
If you
But
say
if you
date,
this date.
if you
last
say
time.
this date, that's going to be a difference. You're right. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Aimer kol sheshem taldase kriya of neider himenu also b'yetzi menu. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, he says no. He says that if you still call the name of what it comes from on it, then it's going to be prohibited. So dvash tamarim, for example, should be prohibited. If he takes a vow from tamarim, from dates, so you can't have, if it's still called dvash tamarim, the honey of dates, then that would be prohibited as well. The chachamim matirim, the chachamim permit it. The Gemara is going to ask that the chachamim seems to be the Tanna Kama. And so why do you have to say the chachamim permit it? You already said the Tanna Kama. So it must be that the chachamim is a different opinion. So then what would the difference be between the chachamim and Tanna Kama? That's what we're going to work on now. Gemara asks, chachamim and the Tanna Kama, the chachamim is the same as the Tanna Kama, the chachamim permit it, which the Tanna Kama permitted. So it could be nayu. There is a difference between them. Hadad the Tanya. Quote an opinion here that is going to be the opinion of the chachamim. It says, Klal Zamar Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Shimon ben Elazar made a rule. Kol shedarke lechal is probably supposed to be leyachal, but lechal means that it eats. Leyachal means that it's eaten. Anything that's eaten, the derech hayetzim meno leyachal, and it's the way of what it produces to also be eaten. For example, dates are eaten. You can eat dates, and you can also eat the honey from dates. What it produces is also eaten. If you're going tamarim, udvash tamarim, that's the example that it gives. It's another bite. Someone takes a vow from dates. We're on 53. Also, he also can have what comes out of it. Now, there's a different version here that says mutter b'yetzim, but let's ignore that. Let's say he takes a vow from dvash tamarim, from the honey of dates. Also, you can't have the dates either, because the honey of the dates is in the dates. Anything that's not eaten, which that would be probably these late grapes, which are too sour to eat. I mean, you could eat them, but they're not. It's not normally eaten. They're used for other things. However, what comes out of it is eaten. So that would be the vinegar that comes from these late grapes, winter grapes. Neither by if he takes a vow from the grapes, he's only prohibited from what comes out of the grapes because he didn't have in mind not to eat the grapes. No one eats the grapes. It must be, what was he taking the vow to prohibit what comes out of it? He obviously meant what comes out of it. Okay, so the Ran summarizes what's going on here.
In the first one, maybe I missed it. Both are also. It's it's only that, but not its.
No. Yeah. But if he takes the vow from Yotzei Mimeno, then he's only prohibited from the Yotzei Mimeno.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the boy was.
Did I say that? Maybe I didn't.
That's
maybe
right.
I didn't say it correctly. Usher boy. Oh, one second. So 1 second. 1 second. Let me see. No.
So if he says, "Oh, so it's dvash tamarim," so dvash tamarim, but you can eat it tomorrow.
It's only usher on it, but not on the tamarim. Yeah, I said it wrong.
Okay, I was
Okay.
sorry.
Now, what comes out is like this. According to the Tanna Kama of our Mishnah, the first opinion that says if you take a vow we didn't make a distinction between if it's the dates or if it's the grapes. You're usher for the honey. I'm sorry, he's mutter for the honey and he's mutter for the vinegar. We didn't make a difference if the father fruit is edible or not edible. It didn't matter. We said it's always only what you took the vow from and not what comes out of it. Well, then we had a Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. He says that if the name is still on it, it's usher on both of them. So he says it doesn't matter if it's edible or not edible. Everything is always usher. Not only the vinegar is usher, but even the grapes that no one eats is also usher because of the vow. Not because it's not edible, it's also because of the vow. You can't eat it if the name is still on it. And then we have Reb Shimon ben Elazar, which we're now going to say is the Chachamim at the end, that say that we make a difference like this. If it's not something that's edible, then you're only usher on the edible part. In other words, by the grapes, you're only usher on the vinegar. That's only edible part of this. But the grapes themselves are permissible. However, if both of them are edible, only on the tiller. No, if you made the vow on the Alvar Tolda, it doesn't matter. If you made the vow on even on the Tolda, even on the Av, if you made a vow on the Av, which means on the grapes, you're only usher on the vinegar. Because no one eats the grapes. You're only meant the
Why would
vinegar.
you make that on the grapes if you don't eat it? It's like saying, I don't eat cactus. I do eat cactus honey. But no one eats cactus. So what's the point of making it?
So we understand that the fact that he said cactus is that he only meant, since no one eats cactus, he didn't really have intention to the cactus. He had intention to the honey that comes from it.
So why did you say that?
I don't know, but he obviously didn't mean the cactus.
What do you mean no one eats grapes?
No, these are sour grapes. These are
Oh,
old,
that's what you said.
the late grapes. However, something that is edible then would be prohibited to have both of them. Okay, because then that's what he meant. So it would be prohibited.
The orange.
So the Chachamim Matirim is they're actually strict in most cases, but in this one case, they would allow the grapes themselves to be eaten, even though they don't allow the vinegar that comes from it to be eaten. We figured out who holds what, and what they hold.
But it says in Nedarim Daf, why are we translating it literally? I'm swearing from not eating food. Why is it not understood to be I'm not going to have pleasure from these? Benefit from these.
And then that would include much more than that.
Because since I'm swearing off eating dates. Like if you read the Mishnah literally, it implies I'm
Give him a
vowing to
trophy.
have benefit from things.
That's trophy
You're a
work.
cookie.
Huh?
Take a cookie, no trophies today.
I wasn't here for the Mishnah on the North.
Can it be all the recent mishnahs
It
are
has
talking
to do
about
with
eating?
has
So
to
it's
do
one
with
hemshech.
the flow of the Mishnayos. Yeah.
All the previous ones were.
Yeah,
were
only about eating.
not benefit.
So just continue with those examples. Okay, I'll have the cookie.
Okay, the next Mishnah says, "Hanedim in a yayin." Someone takes a vow, he's not going to have wine. But the being tapuchim is allowed to have apple wine, fruit wines. Min hashemen, he takes a vow, he's not going to have oil. Mutta b'shemen shum shemen, he's allowed to have sesame oil. Because when he said oil, he meant olive oil. Min advash, he says he's not going to have honey. Mutta b'dvash tamarim, he's allowed to have date honey. Because when he said honey, he meant honey from bees.
So date honey is either honey or no date.
Right, and so far. You would have to say date honey, right? Menachaimetz, if he says he's not going to have vinegar, he's allowed to have vinegar that comes from these grapes, because this is not regular vinegar. Regular vinegar is wine that you leave it and it sours and it turns into vinegar. This is a unique type of vinegar. Minakrishan, he says he's not going to have leaks. Mutter b'kafleitis, he's allowed to have kafleitis, which is some type of leak or something similar, but it's not exactly the same, so it's permissible.
You know what that is?
I don't know. Kaflet. I mean, the Gemara talks about it. I don't know what it is. It leaks. We translated it usually. But this is two types of leak. Minayerek. The German scholars were very comfortable translating things like as if they knew like exactly what type it was. You know, like these dictionaries, the Jastrow or whatever. They're like he wasn't. I don't know if he was German. He was here in Cincinnati. But
I'm looking up Siri, types of leaks,
Kaflutes.
gas leaks, fuel leaks, oil
There's-
leaks.
The two E's.
No, those are good. Those are good. Oil leaks.
Spelled
So they thought like, you know, it's 2,000 years and they figured out which variety it is, you know. Okay, Minayerek mutter b'yerake sasada shushem levai. If he takes a vow from vegetables, he's allowed to have vegetables that come from the field. Yerake sasada. Now, I don't know if this means a different vegetable or the different types that would
Or
grow in the
wild.
field, or does it mean that these were planted differently than what? How do they explain that? What did they say? Is it a different type of vegetable? Like in your
It
garden, you
says
would grow
that,
tomatoes or something.
It's permitted to eat wild field vegetables, as this type of vegetable is a modifier. So
Okay. Okay, so modifier just means that it has another name. So a wild vegetable, you're allowed to have a wild vegetable, but you're not allowed to have the ones that you plant in your garden. Shushem Levi, because that's the modifier. That has, right? It has another name. If you wanted to talk about that, you would have said that.
So if it's in the sabbatical year.
Wait. You're gonna this is the whole Gemara. Very good. Anoida Tanya was taught in the Brisa. Anoida min Hashem and Beretz Yisrael mutter b'shem and shem shemen. Someone is in Eretz Yisrael and he takes a vow from oil. So obviously he refers to olive oil. That's what grows in Israel. So he's allowed to have sesame oil, but he's not allowed to have olive oil. In other words, over here, what was he talking about? In Israel, what was he talking about? Talking about olive oil. He's allowed to have sesame oil. Because it's Hanukkah tonight, right? Hanukkah is tonight. So when I learned Masechta Shabbos with my students, so we're learning about which type of oil, which type of things you're allowed to use, which types of wicks. You know, the Gemara. That's how the Gemara Shabbos gets into Hanukkah. So I had them bring in all every oil that they could find in the house. You know, avocado oil and peanut oil and every coconut oil. They brought it in and we made wicks. And we saw which one burnt the best.
Oh, wow.
What was the-
Safflower.
Was
I
olive
it's
oil?
not. I didn't. Safflower seemed to be the best, but it could be my wicks were not perfect, you know, because we made our own wicks. So that was anyway. So well, we used cotton, and I also had some wool that I got because we were also learning, you know, how to spin wool. So some wool we tried that. You're not allowed to use wool for wicks. Shabbos, at least I remember on Hanukkah. What's the maskana? The wicks that you use on Shabbos, that you're not allowed to use on Shabbos, you're allowed to use on Hanukkah. I don't remember what the halach is. There's a three-way machlekes there. Okay.
Oil,
No way oil.
whale.
Oh, whale oil.
Depended which way you held.
Okay, so sesame oil, that was one of them. So sesame oil he's allowed to have because that in Israel would not be something that they would have, even though did you tell me you grew sesame? No, you grew sesame in Israel. But Bavel, also b'shem and shumshim, but b'shem and zayis. In Babylonia, it's exactly the opposite. He would be allowed to have sesame oil.
That was the most common.
He would not be allowed to have sesame oil because that was the most common. That's what he was referring to. But he would be allowed to have olive oil. Let's say it's a place that has both, right? the supply comes from both, Asr Bazel Bazel, then he's not allowed to have both. The Gemara says, Pshita, that's so obvious, you don't even have to tell me that. The Gemara says, Loi, Tzricha, it's necessary to say that. The Ruba Minchad Mistapkin, we're talking about the majority uses one. Majority, let's say, uses olive oil. I would say that you would follow the majority. Unbelievable Gemara. Mashmalan, it comes to tell me that even though I have a majority, but it's still considered a suffix. I think that from this Gemara, those Paiskim would be right. There's a discussion about if you have to nowadays say a bracha on when you toivel a keli, because the majority of people that make kelim are not Jewish, but there could be a minority that is Jewish. I don't know who owns these companies in China. It's not the Chinese. That's what I know. The question is if it's Jewish people or not Jewish people. So we say, oh, okay, you follow the majority. Then you follow the majority. The majority are not Jewish, so you say a bracha, right? That's what most people are doing. The problem is that when there's a minority, is that considered at least a suffix? In suffix brachas lakal, then you don't say a bracha. So here we're saying that the minority from this Gemara, the minority is still a suffix. I don't say that Raiv makes it into a vadai. Say Raiv is only a suffix. Suffix Yisrael l'chamer. That's what comes out. Interesting. It's an interesting discussion in the Paiskim, but it's based on how do you view a minority? Do you view it as a suffix or not? Rav Avadia has a sheet on it. I don't remember who says what.
And the Gemara doesn't seem to care if it's
Well, a neder is the Issa D'Oraisa.
and that is automatic.
Yeah.
It's automatic.
So the question is, do I say that a majority is considered a vadai? No, majority is like this. That's not good enough. Follow the majority. That's good.
But if it's
If
any
you have-
type of suffix to rice, you go. with-
Yeah, but okay. But let's say I have 3 pieces of meat, and one of them is treif. I'm allowed to eat all 3. I can't cook them together, but I can eat all 3 separately. This one, I say, oh, this can't be the one. This is the majority is kosher. This can't be the one. The majority is kosher. Eat the next one. So this can't be. The majority is kosher. I can end up eating all 3. Officially, you're supposed to take one out, the remote, whatever. There's something. You're supposed to take one out. But anyway, it's a daraisa. One of them is treif, right? But I say that I say, well, I'm using bittel, so maybe bittel throws things off.
I would do
Bittel,
bittul in separate items.
because there's 2 types of bittel. There's a bittel in the mind, and there's a bittel in bittel. It means there's a confusion in your mind, and there's a confusion, and there's a mixture in
And
actuality.
this is the bittul in the mind.
Well, over here, it's really in the mind. It's really, I have. What do I have? I don't know who. Statistics.
Oh, then I can eat any.
Now you found out.
Okay, whatever the case is. Someone takes a vow from Dr. Stein. This is your discussion. Someone takes a vow from vegetables. When it's not the Shemitah year, the other years. So he's obviously meant the ones that he planted in the garden. But he's allowed to eat the wild vegetables. But if it's in the Shemitah year, he's not allowed to eat what he planted. So he's only allowed to eat, since he's not allowed to eat what he planted anyway. So when he took a vow, it must be referring to what was available. What's available for him to eat is the wild ones. He's allowed to eat the ones that grew in the garden. Now that's because he didn't plant. Only if he didn't plant them. Otherwise, it's Shemitah. You can't have them for. Well, no, he's allowed to eat them. He can't sell them, right? He's allowed. We're talking about what would he be referring to? Because what's the supply? How much?
You can't store it either.
You can't store
the
it, right?
vegetables will go back out.
Right. We'll see on the next page what we're referring to. But over here, we would say that he's taking a vow from what the majority of the supply would be from. Okay. Amrav Avam Mishim Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. Rabbi says the name of Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel. When would I say that there's a distinction between the wild ones or the garden ones? That he won't be really eating garden ones because he didn't plant it in his garden, so he probably doesn't have much of from there. So when he took the vow, he's probably only referring to the wild ones that are in the field. That's only if people aren't bringing in vegetables that were planted from chutz la'aretz. Then it's usher. Then it would be usher even to have vegetables from the garden. Why? Because there is a full supply of vegetables from the garden. He didn't grow it. It grew in I don't know, Cyprus or whatever chutz la'aretz. I don't know where they're bringing the fruits from. Is that chutz la'aretz?
Well, I don't know. They're bringing everything.
Yeah. Okay. Kitanai. Where it says this is not so simple. Bringing fruits from chutz la'aretz. We have a machlekes tanaim. Ein meviim yarek mechutz la'aretz la'aretz. The first opinion says you're not allowed to bring vegetables. Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel, I'm meviim yarek mechutz la'aretz la'aretz. See, it's actually Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel himself. He says that you are allowed to bring from chutz la'aretz. My time in demand ein meviim was the opinion that says you're not allowed to import. It says Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah mishum gush. The issue is that it may come in with a clod of dirt, beets and stuff, or potatoes that come, things like carrots, you pull it out of the ground, and the dirt from chutz la'aretz is tamei. So we have a gezerah not to bring in the into Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, they're not.
Technically, you should clean your shoes when you come.
Why is that?
It has to do with that they're not careful with how they bury. Plowed graves in the soil itself.
Is that one of the reasons we use Israel for the table?
That I'm not sure of. No, I think that's something else. Okay. There is another thing about Avodah Zarah, and maybe associated with Avodah Zarah. Is there a comment in there about why the gush?
I'm looking for it.
Two types of mind. Yes.
Yeah, it says bringing it's spread ritual
impurity. Someone takes a vow from eating cabbage. Aser asparagus, he's not allowed to have asparagus. I would have thought it was asparagus, but they don't translate it as asparagus. They translate it as it's another type of cabbage, or it's a cabbage that's soaked in a wine. Oh, maybe something like that, like pickled, like that.
You shouldn't eat anyway.
Is that bad for you, kimchi?
No, just-
Oh, well, it's regular pickled, whatever.
It sounds like
Is that what it says? They had to preserve everything, so the ways of preserve whatever they did. So someone takes a vow from cabbage, you can't have asparagus. Min asparagus, but if he takes the vow from asparagus, then he's mutter b'kruv, he's allowed to have the cabbage. Min agrisen, if he takes a vow from grisen are beans, I think they're split or they're crushed beans. Also b'mikveh, he's not allowed to have beans that are turned into a stew, like a thicker paste. Like Rabbi Yossi Mati, Rabbi Yossi says he is allowed. Mina mikveh, if he has takes a vow from the thick stew of beans, mutter b'grisen, he's allowed to have the regular beans. Mina mikveh, but if he takes a vow from the stew, aser b'shum, he's not allowed to have the garlic. Now, what this means, there's different ways of learning this. One of the ways is that in the stew of the beans was garlic that was put there to flavor, but he's allowed to pull that out and eat it because that's not really part of the stew. That was there for flavor. Or maybe the other explanation would be that garlic could also be turned into like a paste. And that could also be like some sort of thick stew. And when he says, I'm not going to have a mikveh, which means some thick paste. So he's allowed to have he's not allowed to have garlic because it's too similar. Rabbi Yossi says that he is allowed. Minashum, if he takes a vow from garlic, mikveh, then he's allowed to have that bean stew. Minadashim, if he takes a vow from lentils, asr ba'ashishim, he's not allowed to have the lentil dish. Rabbi Yossi says he is allowed to. Minashishim, if he takes a vow from this lentil dish, also like probably like a mikveh type of thing, but beans. Mutabadashim, then he's allowed to have the lentils themselves.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
all these delineations, are these, and the rabbis arguing, are these halachic discrimination saying this is what it means, or are they just explaining the vernacular?
It's just explaining the vernacular. It's just usage. The interesting thing about these Mishnayos is that because it's usage, it should really just be, it shouldn't really be here. It should just be constantly being updated. You know, because usage is always updated. What does this word mean today? So I guess what the Gemara is doing is it's telling us how to determine how we update the usage. They have a panel for the American usage for the thing. They have a panel where they ask people like, is this sentence acceptable? And that's how things get into the dictionary, new words and you know, the rules of grammar. Would you accept it if it says,
That's the whole he/she.
what is
It's also
that?
progressive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and also how to put in new words. There's always new words, right? Yeah.
The word this year is gaslighting.
Yeah. Does that mean putting someone in ignoring them on
I tried to look it up.
I think it means
Passive aggressive.
it means like you ignore them and you don't text them back or something. That's what I've heard my students use it.
Gaslights?
I like the word multi-slacking. That's when you have
Multi-slacking, that's
you have
a
a lot of things open on your computer, but none of them have to do with work.
If gaslighting is a colloquialism, that's the word we keep on using, loosely defined as manipulating someone so as to make them question their own reality.
So it's not what I thought.
That's deeper.
It's not what I thought.
It's much deeper. That's like, wow.
It's like, who are you?
So when did that word come
Ain't
in?
nobody. When did that come?
Okay, anyway. Chita chitin shanitayim. Someone says wheats. He says a singular and he says a plural. That I'm not going to eat. So also behem ben kemach ben pas. You can't have the flour, you also can't have the bread.
Isn't it shiny time that I'm tasting now?
Yeah.
Isn't that current?
Yeah, but what it means is it's always switches. The shani tayim or it means kainam shani tayim.
If you had it in your mouth, you have to spit it out. That was my question yesterday. If you make the neder about something that's already you've taken the bite of,
I don't know. What
I
does he
mean,
mean?
how
Does he
what's
mean
strong? What
to
is there
swallow it? Shani tayim. Where's the tayim? Does
Right.
it mean right? Is he tayim it when he swallows it? Or is he tayim it
Right.
when? I don't know. Asi ben kemach ben pas. Grisen. If he says the same thing about what was the gris was the beans. He says a bean and beans. Shani tayim. Asi ben chaim ben v'shalom. You can't have them whether it's raw, whether it's cooked. I'll explain what this means. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Someone says that I'm not going to have gris, a bean, or wheat. He's allowed to chew it. Lakis means to eat, but it means to eat in a way when it's not really edible. It's called lak. It means chew. So it's
You
called.
could say, I'm never going to smoke cigarettes, chew tobacco.
Sounds acceptable. Is he allowed to smoke a pipe? That would be the question. Because he said cigarette. He'd be allowed to smoke or a cigar
Vape.
or a vape. These are very practical
current.
questions.
Yeah.
nowadays.
All those who quit last year will quit again this year. Right? So what's really going on over here is that when he says a singular, then he's referring to something that turns into a paste or a bread. If he says a plural, then he's talking about the grains themselves, because the plural would be the grains, and they're all separate. So if he says chitim, he's referring to bread. If he says chita, he's referring to bread. If he says chitim, he's referring to the grains themselves, because that would be a plural, grains. Tanya, starting in a brisa. If he says just the singular, then he's not allowed to have the bread, but he's allowed to chew on the grains, because he said a singular. Chitim shani tayim. If he says the plural, wheat, that he's not going to taste asalakis mutlefis, but he is allowed to have bread, because he meant that he's not going to chew on wheat grains. Chita chitin. If he says both shani tayim, then it's also bein lakas bein lefis. He can't have the grains, he can't have the bread. Grish shani tayim. Do the same thing with the beans. Asal avashal mutlakis. Then he can't have it cooked, because over there it turns into one lump. However, but he can chew them, because that would be a plural, and he didn't say a plural. Grease in shanita, if he did say a plural, asalakis and mutlavashal, then he's allowed to have the clump that's cooked, but he's not allowed to have them separate as individual pieces. Grease in shanita, if he puts them all together, if he says both singular and plural, asalavashal, also bein lavashal, bein lakas, he can't have the clump that's cooked, and he can't have the grain separate. Start the new parak. Yeah, why it's divided? I mean, the parak seems to be the same topic. Nedarim Daf. Someone takes a vow from a vegetable. He's not going to eat the vegetable. Mutter bedlun is allowed to have gourds, pumpkins, squash, I guess. What's the reason for this? The Ran gives two explanations. One is that maybe yerek just means greens, like we find in the Mishnah Brachas. The Rabbi Yehuda says that on yerek he's supposed to say a bracha for Yemine Deshayim or something, which is like grass.
The dalat's like a fruit.
And dalas is the fruit of the.
So that's a bracha that
Rabbi Yehuda would have said that there's a different bracha. It's not a priha dama. It's not a fruit of the ground on the greens. It's something else. So yerek just means the greens. Yerek, that's what the word yerek means, greens. Right?
No, that's me. I'm going to get a coffee.
Mute yourself.
For everybody. For everyone.
Is he getting coffee?
Yeah.
How's he gonna be getting? He needs a tray. They need a coffee cart to bring it up. So Ron's first shot is that the luam is the fruit. Ron's second shot is when he said vegetables, he's referring to things that are eaten raw, and gourds are only eaten cooked. Okay, you get to choose which one. Some of the commentaries mix the two together, but it would go together, I guess, because the greens you could usually eat raw, and the fruits a lot of times you have to cook. Rabbi Akiva says you're not allowed to have the gourd. Again, he only took a vow from vegetables, but he can't have the gourd. We would say, well, which part of the supermarket do you buy it in? Do you buy it in the vegetable section? And it's a vegetable, right? We wouldn't talk about where it grows in the greenhouse. Say, I'm not gonna have vegetables. Are you allowed to have a tomato? You know, depends who you ask. You know, okay. Amar Laila Rabbi Akiva. They told Rabbi Akiva when it comes to which bracha you make on chocolate-covered nuts. You say a shahakal because of the chocolate. You say eitz or adama if it's peanuts or something. So they wanted to say it depends which store you buy it in. Do you buy it in a nut store or do you buy it in a chocolate store? Usually the chocolate stores and the nut stores the same store. So which section in the supermarket was it? So So they told Rabbi Kiva like this: a person can tell his messenger. He says, "Go buy for me a vegetable." The fellow returns. He says, "I couldn't find any vegetables. All they had was gourds." That means that gourd is not a vegetable. Why are you saying that if he takes a vow from vegetable, he can't have a gourd? Look, anyone that is sent to the market to buy a vegetable is going to come back saying they didn't have vegetables. They only have gourds. That means that gourd is not a vegetable. Amalahem, Rabbi Kiva says back, Kenadavar. It's exactly so. Shema Aimer who lie or something. Lie matzasi alakitnis. Did he say I only found legumes? Only found the beans? No, he's only saying al shadulum b'chlal yerek b'kitnis and b'chlal yerek. Why did he even say that all I found was gourds? That itself is a proof that the gourd is a vegetable. Or else he wouldn't have said all I found was paper towels. Well, that's nothing to do with it, right? So the fact that he even comes back and has that as part of his sentence, that I couldn't find this, all I could find was the gourds, means that gourds are vegetables. However, this pula mitzri, which is a type of Egyptian bean, so they have a word for it, I guess Egyptian bean. If it's soft, it's considered a vegetable. But if it's dry, then it's not considered a vegetable. Probably then it was used as a cowpea. Okay.
I didn't know that usually like there could be some argument commentary in the Mishnah, more or less. Like it seemed like Rabbi Kiva had that one opinion.
Sages. Yeah. Usually, most Mishnayos do not give you the back and forth. But we do have some back and forth every once in a while. Remember in Pesachim, we had a long back and forth. You have it sometimes. The editor forgot to take it out. Okay, Hanaidim and Ayarek is a book by Rabbi David Zvi Hoffman. Familiar with him? Malamed Lahayel. Rabbi in Germany. He's the teacher of the Sri Dayesh, Rabbi Weinberg. Anyway, his book, he wrote it in German. I think it was called the Erste Mishnah. He's talking about what the Mishnah was originally, because the Mishnah is the Tersh Balpeh.
Right.
What did it look like originally? I think he says that it had psukim in it, and then
You
the
derive
psukim
from it.
Psukim were removed. And as the Mishnah was before Rebbe arranged the Mishnayos in the way of Zerayim Mayed, like this, it was probably associated with the Psukim in the Torah, because it was the oral tradition that came along with the text. Anyway.
Why would you take it out? Isn't that like to koyach of the whole thing?
Yeah, but then it was arranged in a different order. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't go through it.
It's a nice
It's
theory.
translated
Yeah.
into Hebrew, so you could read it, but you could read it in German also. Today, put the thing over, the Google Translate. You ever do that? Google Translate, has a photo. You hold it over the thing, and it will translate the whole page for you. Yeah, like in a second. So, okay.
Sort of like what the Rambam later.
Yeah, Rebbe did what the
Rebbe
Rambam did, yeah.
what the Rambam
Someone takes a vow from vegetables. The Gemara is asking on Rabbi Akiva. How could you say that a gourd is going to be prohibited? Go on to translate. Is that what you're doing? On the translate. On the translate, there's a photo. It says
Google Lens.
no, not the Google Lens. It's something else. Oh. But he vowed from vegetables. So Marula by Meyera Kadeir Alai. He says Yarke Kadeir Alai, vegetables of the pot. Okay. That means things that are put into a pot as well. The Gemara over here, at least according to the Pshat that I was learning in the Ran, was that maybe it means only things that are used as flavor in a pot, to flavor a pot. So this two Pshatim over here. Maybe it means only things that are, so far, Yarek would mean two Pshatim. we started off. It's unbelievable, no? And then it,
Usually
and then a
erases
second
the
later,
Hebrew.
and erases the Hebrew and it puts it in. And if it's modern Hebrew, it's amazing. With this, it's geferlach, because they translate everything like, but yeah. So let's take one shot of the run and we'll stick to it. We're talking about what's eaten raw, what's eaten cooked. The yerek is eaten raw. So we started off. Why are you saying gourds? Gourds aren't eaten raw. So it says no. What he said was yerek hanechel b'kteirukam. It's talking about vegetables that are eaten from a pot. So that means that it's referring to cooked ones as well. But now the Gemara says, but 1 second. Dilma yerek hanechel b'kteira. I'm sorry, yarke kedera. Maybe it's only the yerek hanechel b'kteira means vegetables that are also eaten in a pot. It means things that are eaten raw or cooked. But this is only eaten cooked. It says ba'ima yerek hamispashal b'kteira alai. He prohibited on himself vegetables that are cooked in a pot. Okay, so now we included also the gourds. My kamiflagi, what's the machlekes here? Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan hold, Kol Mil Siddharth Sichalam Luchi Allah Lav Minahu. If the messenger needs to go back and say, is it okay if I purchase this because it's not exactly what you told me? So then that's not considered the type. And Rabbi Akiva said, Kol Mil Siddharth Sichalam Minahu. Rabbi Akiva says exactly the opposite. If this messenger would come back and say, is it okay if I purchase this? That would mean that it is the type. Yeah, it's exactly the same, same type. It's exactly the opposite. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Maidu Rabbi Kiva in Malka Shena Laika. You have to turn it around the other way. Come the other way, then you can lift it up.
Going around.
All of these principles that we're reading about here, we use this today in our model analysis.
Take me.
Oh, if it's considered min b'minai,
If I recall the two big,
there's a machlekes the
Surprises
Ramah
were-
and the Shach
You know
over
what?
there. Basa Shema, Basa Taima.
the addition of the spiritual consideration from the Ron the other day.
the Ran.
And here's the addition of the name.
Right, right.
In halakha, how does it come out? You know?
The Ramah says we follow the name,
We all the name.
and the Shach makes a big deal about it. Remember, in Tzaddik Ches,
Yeah.
Shach Vav, big Shach.
Coffee.
There's an extra, sure.
With me, it's.
You really did it? I didn't turn around.
You really did.
Thank you.
Put it on your chart.
Sugar
Thank you.
or sweet and low.
Sugar.
Thank you, thank you, Rennie.
Still on the.
You don't drink with sugar, do you, sir?
Shut
No.
this.
Okay. Abaya says like this. Maidu Rabbi Kiva in Malka Shena Laika.
He deserves a trophy.
Rabbi Akiva, although he says that it's prohibited to have the gourd, but he will not say that that the person that eats the gourd will get malchus. He
Thank
just
you,
says
Rabbi.
that it's prohibited because it's a doubt. You can't say that it's not a vegetable. Because look, if the messenger would come and say, I couldn't find any vegetables, all I find was a gourd. Obviously, a gourd is also a type of vegetable, at least enough that we should say that it should be prohibited now. But at least out of a doubt, it should be prohibited. But not that if a person then goes and eats a gourd, he should get lashes because it's a definitely vegetable. I don't drink coffee. I stopped. I'm not a coffee drinker anymore.
Wow.
Wait, does that
Yeah,
include
it's
the
not-
coffee grinds or just the coffee?
Coffee cake.
Coffee cake.
Coffee cake? No.
I don't have cake
No,
either.
it's like-
Don't go
I
too
say
far.
steak fish.
Someone told me he had a secret to his chalent. He had like this very good chalent. Secret is he puts coffee in it.
Wow.
Wait,
Not impressed.
Better than barbecue sauce.
Fine.
Okay, Tanan Hassam was taught over there in the Mishnah in Me'ilah. You ready? Me'ilah has an interesting halacha. Usually we say Ein Shliach L'Dvar Aveira, that if there's a someone that's sending, and he's sending a messenger. He sends a messenger to do a sin for him. So we say that we don't punish the person that's the sender, that we punish the messenger. The messenger is divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin. You weren't supposed to listen to the sender. You're supposed to listen to Hashem. So he gets punished. You can't say he told me to. By Me'ilah, we don't say that. By Me'ilah, we say that the messenger is the one that violates the. Now, there's one little detail in here, which makes it a little bit more logical, is that the messenger doesn't know that what he's doing is prohibited. So that now it already fits. Tanan Hasam. Hashliach shasa shlichusay. If the messenger sends the shliach to go take certain items and to use them, so balabaya small. If the shliach does that, exactly what the messenger said, if the messenger does exactly what the sender said, then the balabayas, the sender, violates the rules of Me'ilah because she was a regular shlichus, and this is a shlichus where we say that it goes back, yesh shliach lidvar avera, we say that the balabayas gets the Me'ilah. Lo yasser shlichusay, let's say he deviated from the instructions, then shliach mal, then it doesn't go back to the sender, then the shliach himself violates the Me'ilah. Mantana, who's the one that taught this? Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, I don't know, but Masnisim Deleker Rabbi Akiva. All I know is that our Mishnah doesn't fit with Rabbi Akiva. The Tanan, because our Mishnah taught, Ketzad, what would the case be? Amalei 10 basal archim. Someone says, give meat to the guests. V'nasan covered, and instead of giving them meat, he gave them liver. Apparently, the liver is not exactly the meat. There's a very interesting Maram Shif at the end of Chulin. At the end of Chulin, the Maram Shif has like this collection of things. He says that liver doesn't even make you flesh.
Oh, wow.
But that's not the halacha. The opinion is not halacha. He says it's just blood.
What am I chocolate?
I remember seeing like liver on a bagel platter. You know, with cheese.
That's vegetarian.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Liver is flesh. But tain covered v'nasan and basar. If he says give liver and he gave them meat, then he gave hashliach mal. The shliach is the one that violated the me'ilah, and not the sender. Why? Because he deviated from the instructions. Now, if Rabbi Akiva, if this Mishnah would follow Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva kol milsa the mimlach shliach minahu limal balabayas v'lein limal shliach. It should be exactly the opposite. Because anything where the shliach would return and say, I couldn't find any meat, but I did find liver, Rabbi Akiva would say, that obviously means that liver is meat. If that's the case, then the balabayas should be mile, the sender, because it would be attributed back to his action because it was exactly what he said. Amar Abaya says, I feel Tamer Rabbi Akiva. It's actually not so. It really could be Rabbi Akiva. Very interesting statement. Does Rabbi Akiva not hold that he has to go back and ask? You see, what Abaya is doing here, he's saying you're making a comparison between the rules of Me'ilah and the rules of Nedarim. Rabbi Akiva only said that when it comes to a neder, that's a proof that it goes under the category of the original of the vegetable, or it would go under the category of the meat. By Nedarim, you're right, it would be considered meat. Why? Because the shliach would go back and say, I couldn't find any meat, I only found liver. So by Nedarim, yeah. But when it comes to fulfilling the shlichus, the shliach needs to go back and ask, say, did you mean this? So when it comes to Nedarim, it goes under the category. When it comes to shlichus, you still have to go back and ask, is that what you meant? So when it comes to Me'ilah, you have to go back and ask. If he didn't go back and ask, so then he deviated from the shlichus. Even though in Nedarim it goes under the same category. This is like an achron would say something like this. You know, this slight distinction is not common for Gemara. Itmar Shmaite Kamei Rava. This was told over in front of Rava. Amalon Shaper Nachmeni. Rava says, Abaya said well. Shaper Nachmeni. Nachmeni is either Abaya's name is really Nachmani and he's called Abaya because he grew up in Rabba Bar Nachmani's house, and Rabba didn't want to call him Nachmani, so he calls him Abaya because Abaya is some sort of word like means like the name of my father, which his father was Nachmani. Or it's the opposite. Or his name is Abaya, but they call him Nachmani because he grew up in Rabba's house. He was from the Nachmani family. What does the Ran say? I saw the Ran
I
over
know,
here. The
but
Ran had an interesting. I saw
Because he
someone
grew
had
in
an
the house of
interesting shot.
Rabba Bar Nachmani.
Where did he see that?
The Krishna's got a little base Bar Bar.
So he's called Nachmani because he grew up in the house of Nachmani, which is different than the way we're always taught. We're always taught that his name was Nachmani, and it's interesting. Montana the Polygola de Rabbi Akiva. Who argues in Rabbi Akiva? It's Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Hanoidim in a basar. Someone takes a vow, he's not going to have meat. Asr b'chol mini basar, he's not allowed to have any meat, any types of meat. Asr b'roish, he's not allowed to have the head. B'regalim,
No,
reglayim, not allowed to have the feet. Probably means a holiday. Ubekana, you can't have the trachea. That probably means the
The neck.
it would be the
We're not talking about fowl, we're talking about.
meat.
Cows.
Yeah, but the fowl's going to come in a minute. Recovered, he can't have the liver.
What? Regalim.
Regalim is the name of the holiday. Holidays.
Reglaim.
Ubelev can have the heart. Ubeifes, he can have fowl. Yeah, he can't have any of this. This is this first opinion. However, mumutter bebasar dagim echagavim, but he is allowed to have fish meat and grasshopper meat.
Yeah.
Because when he took the vow for meat, he wasn't thinking about steaks, tuna steaks, right? He was.
When I said I don't eat meat anymore, I excluded mentally.
Everything.
Turkey
And corned
and
beef,
chicken.
and pastrami,
Okay,
No, so I'm cool, right?
and
Yes, sir.
chicken
But
at
ask the
the
rabbi.
let's see over here.
Chicken and turkey.
Let's see here. Wait for them.
I even clarified that.
But what about fish? Do you have fish?
Yeah, I saw them have Brazzino at
I
Milano's.
love rice, or the best.
Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, Haneidim in a basar. Someone takes a vow from meat. Asr b'chol mini basar. He's not allowed to have all types of meat. However, mutter b'reish u'beraglayim u'bekana b'kaved b'leiv u'oifes vein tzarachlayim basar dagim gavim. Shimon ben Gamliel says no. He's allowed to have all of this. He's allowed to have the head. That's not meat. He's allowed to have the feet. That's not meat. He's allowed to have the innards, which is like the trachea. He's allowed to have the liver. He's allowed to have the heart. He's allowed to have fowl, and for sure he's allowed to have fish. He only said meat. Meat means red, steaks, real slice of meat.
Oh, so who says that?
Reb Shimon ben Gamliel.
Good, I hope I.
Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, kravayim lav basar, says the innards is not considered meat. Vayichleyim lav barinish, and people that eat them are not considered people. Those that eat them, I should say. Those that eat them are not people. Means this is eaten by the animals eat this.
Like the organs.
The inner organs, right?
Not healthy.
Not healthy.
They're not healthy.
They're heathens.
Which ones?
Tricky.
Liver is not healthy.
Why is it those who say?
Uh-huh.
Of course, there are also those who say, oh, meat.
Right.
It's hard to.
It sounds like a machlaikas.
It's hard to eat a lot of.
Oh yeah.
By this statement of those who eat them are not human, that relate to the head and the leg? Or
Yeah.
the innards?
And actually, that's interesting. I guess it would mean, and I didn't see it in the commentaries. I didn't see.
And we know that artificially that memory, right?
There was something like that. Yeah. Now,
Wait a minute, read the commentary because, first I was taken aback because I'm saying How can you, call someone else not a human being? That's so politically incorrect, period.
It wasn't written in our time.
No. But look what it says here. Those who, given the chance at the same price between ordinary meat and intestines, disregard the former, meaning meat, and purchase it, are not typical human beings. That makes a whole different sense.
That's a Dr. Fan timer.
I finished.
That's apologetics.
Apologetics.
Yeah. Sounds.
Yeah, okay.
Got it under the time.
Wait, so you're saying they're just,
I'm saying they're adding it, yeah, they're making it look nice.
but you know what? All these times when they rank out other people, it would always
But
bother me.
over here, it's just saying that it's not human food. That's what it means. Doesn't mean that people
Sorry,
that,
I like the commentary.
it doesn't mean
Will
that
you
people,
put your camera down?
It doesn't-
No, timer.
Timer,
it doesn't
put
mean
the
that
timer
people-
down.
doesn't mean that people doesn't mean that people that eat it are not humans. It just means that it's not human food. It's not human food. So that's the way of saying that it's not human food. Echleim kebasar. Oh, this is a funny thing over here. Echleim labarinish l'may hilchasa. What is this? I'm adding in from the Bach. What is this referring to? That it's le'inyan echleim kebasar le'inyan zvini. What does it mean that it's like meat, that those that eat it like meat? That's referring to buying. I don't know what this means. I don't know what the Gemara is saying. Doesn't mean to say that it should not be sold for the same price. If someone buys meat, they shouldn't be given this as the same price as meat. Is that what it means? What is the English translate? How does the English translate that?
He goes to buy it, but he can't find it. Go buy some meat. You can't find the meat.
Let me take a look.
Which one is he talking about?
Lavzvini. No, it's not considered a sale. It's no le'inyan zvini. So echleim kibasar le'inyan zvini lav barinish. With regard to purchase, one who purchases them is not a person. With regard to one who eats them, in terms of lachri consumption vows, they are considered as meat. Oh.
This is what I just said. in English.
So 1 second.
If you
So
pay
this
the
is the
same
answer.
price-
This is the Gemara's. With 1 second. Did we have a question here? We said who argues on Rabbi Akiva? Said Rav Shimon ben Gamliel because he says that it's not considered meat. So the Gemara says with regard to eating them, they are considered as meat. With regard to purchase, is not a person. It is not considered meat with regard to vows. Flame kabasa. Linyan zvini lav barinis. Okay, let me leave it. Whatever the case is, there's a like a Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva. Okay, now the Gemara says, Maishna Basarif.
But I'm aware of
You read all those books that you can read.
In English.
But I never knew the photo did it. I would always copy,
Yeah.
select all, and then
Right.
paste it into the
Now I
other
can read all
side.
those English.
So
books.
now I know how to do it quicker.
Into Yiddish.
But listen,
It
here's-
translates Russian.
It won't catch most of it, but it will give you a few of the words. But in a modern Hebrew book, it would do the whole thing. So it would have to have a Gemara language. Maishna Basarayf Tanakama the Aser. What's going on over here? Why is it the Tanakama said that fowl is Aser? David Shlicha the Mimlachala. because the shliach would have to come back and ask, is that what you meant? And because he would come back and ask, when you said meat, did you mean fowl? So that would mean that it is a type of meat. Why don't we say fish as well? If he couldn't find any meat, he would probably go back and say, I couldn't find any meat, but I did find fish. So if he would do that for fowl, and we said that fowl, that means that fowl is considered meat under Rabbi Akiva's style of learning. So then the same thing should apply to fish, and the fish should be asur. Why did we say the first Tana that argues, and I'll say that fish is permissible? Amar Abaya says we're talking about a specific case. The scenario goes like this. Kunchik dam. It was a day that he did bloodletting. So obviously he didn't mean fish. Because when you bloodlet, you don't eat fish.
Right.
The Gemara says, then he shouldn't have fowl either. When they do bloodletting, they shouldn't eat bird. Today they give you orange juice. But that's not from the Gemara. The Amar Shmuel, the muskar, what is it supposed to be? The muspar. V'achal bisra, I think that means that he did bloodletting. And then he eats meat, the tzafra, meat of a bird. Harach libi k'tzafra. His heart will flutter like a bird. That means that he'll be on the verge of fainting. Betanya, and it was taught in a brayso also, when you do bloodletting, layal dagim v'layal leifes v'layal basar maliach. You have to prepare the food beforehand because it's going to be weak after the bloodletting. So you shouldn't have fish or fowl or salted meat. So why are we saying that the fowl is prohibited? He's not going to be, he didn't have an intention for that. That's a cress. If he does bloodletting, he shouldn't have milk or cheese or eggs or cress or fowl or salted meat. So why did we say that fowl was prohibited when he took a vow not to eat meat? So shani yoifes the efshar al yedei shlika, because if you cook it the right way, then that is okay after bloodletting. So it's the day that he is doing bloodletting, he's not going to eat fish anyway. So obviously that wasn't his intention. But fowl, it is possible that that's what he meant. So therefore, when he takes a vow, he's not going to have fowl or he's not going to have meat. He's not going to have meat. It would include fowl because it's possible to eat it. We're not talking about someone that did bloodletting. We're talking about someone that had pain in his eyes. The dagim kashim leinayim. Fish is bad for the eyes. The Gemara says if that's the case, achel dagim, he should eat fish. Damar Shmuel nun samachayin. Shmuel gave a siman to remember this. Nun sama leinayim. Nuna, which means fish. Sama is a potion. Leinayim for the eyes. It is good for the eyes.
Nobody said back to Pei Tzaddik.
That is at the end of the infection.
When you already had it.
When it's almost finished, then you can have the fish, not at the beginning. Okay, let's leave it over there.
Wow.
Woo, wow, you shoot, up today. Woo, single coffee. Although I spilled